Good afternoon, everyone. This is Robbie Butler, Managing Director of Y Street Capital, here with my friend Leyla Kunimoto.
Hello, everybody.
We'll get
Nice to
going in
see
just a we'll get going in just a minute, but as people start to attend and sign into LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, we'll begin our presentation. We have some slides to share as well, but the the amount of content that this conversation can get into is so broad and diverse that you have to find the nugget you're looking for and run with the nugget. So we'll share plenty of nuggets, and hopefully over the time you'll get a little bit of where you can implement for your business and your investments to go forward. Any opening comments, Leyla?
Yes, so when we were brainstorming this presentation, what we really wanted to do is share something that's actionable, easy to implement, something that you'll be able, whatever we share today, you'll be able to take that information and implement that, go to ChatGPT or whatever AI LLM platform you like, and start playing with those things immediately. So we hope you
We
find
all
it
know
useful.
we all know that playing with these tools is the essential way to learn. You have to iterate and implement. When I give this presentation publicly, I often say it's like a baby. Take the baby, train up the baby. The baby grows very quickly and gets very smart very quickly, but you have to start somewhere. And that's the operating rules for artificial intelligence today. Start small, figure it out, and then grow in your implementation of it. And soon you'll get to agent behavior and you'll have it pulling documents for you and running multiple scenarios. That's all possible today, but we'll start small today as well.
Yes, and this, Robbie, this is such an excellent point. Start when you start, because the tool in front of you is so incredibly powerful. It can do all sorts of things, but if you don't train that baby is going to be giving you all sorts of things that you should not be, that it shouldn't be telling you. So you want to train your baby, your AI assistant baby, from the very basics. And you don't want to, that's the one thing that I want you to remember. If you've never used those tools, start with one thing. Like, take one thing, one assumption, and train and make sure that your AI assistant can do things in a way that's reliably consistent. Because to me, for the purposes of using AI, one of the biggest drawbacks is the fact that it's not always reliably consistent. Sometimes it says things that are on the nose, and sometimes it does not. So, and we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail today.
Yes. By way of introduction, my name is Robbie Butler, Managing Director at Y Street Capital. We are a developer of nationwide multifamily self-storage and land development. So it's from that lens that I bring our uses of artificial intelligence to our discussion today. Leyla, you and I got to know each other over a year ago when we started talking about what we were seeing in the landscape for limited partners. Share a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Leyla Kunimoto. I am a founder of a newsletter that targets retail limited partners. It's accredited insight.com. And what I do is I'm an investor. I'm purely a limited partner. I invest across all different asset classes, real estate. I do invest in private credit. I look at all sorts of offerings. And I look at what I'm going to be presenting is going to be presenting the perspective of a limited partner who gets bombarded with presentation decks in different asset classes. Most of my fellow limited partners have some experience in real estate, but maybe not. We certainly don't have experience in self-storage and multifamily and triple net leases. So I will talk about how you can use AI to help you do due diligence on things that perhaps you are not super familiar with.
If we look at the beginning of the artificial intelligence journey that an individual gets on, you're presented with infinite tools, like we said at the beginning, and infinite opportunities to apply the tools to deals. So, like we said, look for the small starting case. We have examples across a breadth of the things that come at us. The challenge with being a general partner is that you end up needing to use artificial intelligence on so many different iterations. You have to vet your lenders. You have to vet your limited partners sometimes. You have to vet business opportunities that come to you. You're given decks by brokers. You're given you're given connections and relationships, service providers, contractors. All of that can take AI. The limited partner has the advantage of getting to begin at a narrow level of saying, is this right or wrong for me? However, this is your capital we're putting to work, and that's a precious thing. So that is a piece of what makes this whole industry so unique. And we will talk across both of those. Leyla, talk a little bit about the information overload that's possible at the beginning.
Yes, at the beginning for limited partners, the information overload, it's a welcome thing, right? The more presentation decks you see, the better you're going to be as a limited partner, the better you'll be able to pick the ones that fit your investment criteria right out of the gate. And the one suggestion I have for other LPs is this: increase the deal flow that lands on your desk. You want to see a lot of pitch decks. You want to see a lot of different asset classes. You want to compare and contrast, because you will start seeing certain themes emerge, and it will allow you to get better at defining your own buy box. I know what my buy box is. There are deals that land on my desk that I can open the deck and say, you know what, this doesn't fit, in 2 minutes. And that's a huge time saver. In the beginning, you don't have that luxury. You need to see, dozens of decks before you get to that level of, to that level of speed. And that's where AI can help tremendously. If you are an LP or an allocator of other people's capital, you can now use tools that will streamline that process for you. You can feed those decks into a large language model, have very concise summaries, and in those summaries, you can easily see, perhaps projected returns. What percentage of your returns are coming from cash flow? Is this a development deal, a triple net lease deal? How risky it is? How what the major risks are? You can bucket those investment opportunities into certain buckets, and that will allow you to kind of develop the themes. One of the uses, and this is a total tangent, but on a tangent, one of the things I highly recommend is keep track of everything that lands on your desk. If you want to invest in multifamily in the Midwest, let's say, keep track of every deal that fits into that bucket, and keep track of assumptions. XYZ GP, what did they underwrite? What did they underwrite for exit cap rate? What did they underwrite for expense growth, for rent growth? How are they underwriting expense growth? How fast can they renovate the units? AI can do all of that and make you a neat little table and keep track of every deal you see. After 6 months, if you look at enough deals, you're going to have a table that summarizes, the universe of that particular asset class. I think that's a great use for GPs as well. When you get pitch decks from brokers, that is a great way of creating your very own database of what's out there. If you're only buying real estate in Chattanooga, Tennessee, for example, you can feed every pitch deck you get into a tool, into an AI tool, and keep very close tabs over, if you're doing this over a few years, you can have a valuable data resource.
And it also can tell you, this is what I'm currently seeing. What am I not seeing? What is totally outside of my scope or my vision for my investments that I need to suddenly become aware of? Building your own data is a great core concept here. You came because the audience came because you're interested in learning how AI can improve your due diligence. And we'll share specific tools in our half an hour together from the lens of the general partner. When all this information is coming in, we spend our full-time days sorting through, identifying this is an opportunity not only that's good for us, but good for our investors. You have so many more layers to delve through and so many more different types of information you have to flow. Short examples. I was given a warm referral to a lender that likes construction opportunities, and they like high loan to cost lending. That's fairly unusual in this risk environment. High loan to cost lending, meaning they'll give us a lot more for construction, hard and soft costs, et cetera. And we said, okay, we're paying attention. You're saying you can handle this loan level. I think we were looking for a $59 million loan, and at a high loan to cost because of let me back up, $75 million deal, $59 million loan, fairly high loan to cost. We're interested. We're paying attention. That lender looked at our deal, and we had a meeting with them. We got some email communication going. I rolled all that data up, including the recording of the conversation and the lending package that they sent us, a brief one pager on the company plus a little bit more info, plugged it into one of the tools we'll talk about today, and suddenly found discrepancies in what they had said. So that led me to my next line of questions. And from that, we realized they're really not funding their other construction opportunities at the rate that they need to be in order for us to consider them as lending to us. So they're slowing down other construction projects and looking for new business. We want to finish when we start construction. This is not a good lending relationship for us. One example of how suddenly we're able to ask the right questions using the tools that we'll share today to figure out, is a lender a good lender for us? All of that is what an LP has to vet. However, you have the trust in the GP, hopefully as a beginning stage, to be able to say they're making good decisions, but you want to know why the general partner is making the decisions they're making, and AI can help organize all of that. Leyla, let's start talking about some of the tools, and we'll share these three, and then we've got at least a few more we can walk into. Where would you like to begin?
Well, let's start at the very beginning. And where we want to start is, and this is not a plug for Gamma, but for all of our listeners, I wanted to tell you that this presentation was entirely created by AI. So let's start there, because that is such an incredible, this highlights just how far AI has progressed over the last so many years, over the last two and a half years. We really weren't using these tools at all. So this presentation, first of all, this presentation was created by Gamma. From a written prompt, I said, I was typing up my notes yesterday for this presentation, and one of the AI tools that I was using said, would you like me to create a presentation? And that a light bulb went off, and I spent the next 15 minutes looking at different tools that can create AI presentations. Gamma is one of them. This presentation was created entirely. All the images, all the slides were created by Gamma in under 5 minutes. I added 2 images to this presentation. One of them, as you're looking at it, it is a very simple sample pro forma. So this is something that investors will see in presentation decks. I believe this is a value add multifamily pro forma. So typically most decks you will run across as a limited partner will have a PDF. And what you can do with that is, I highly recommend that you stress assumptions just to see how much margin of safety any given deal has. But it's very easy to do in Excel if you know how financial modeling works. It doesn't take a lot of time. However, what you don't want to do is, oftentimes you don't have access to the Excel model. GPs are busy people. When they do those presentations, you don't want to bug somebody with questions. Can you provide this? Can you provide that? You can take what's in the deck, and a lot of decks have a lot of detailed information. You can take the PDF, take a screenshot of a pro forma like this, and go to your favorite LLM tool. There are pros and cons to each of the models, and I will briefly touch on it. And Robbie, I would love for you to jump in and provide your perspective. So I outlined the top 3, right? Everybody knows about ChatGPT. Everybody knows about Claude, which is Anthropic. And both of those, ChatGPT used to be my favorite. It does a beautiful job with Excel. It's a little bit more, Excel is a little bit more native to it. It's a little bit more quantitative as a tool. So it does a little bit better with numbers than Claude. Claude has a much better personality. It's a lot spunkier. And it does push back when I ask certain things. But Claude's advantage is you can throw a pitch deck into Claude, you can upload a pitch deck and say, highlight the 5 things I need to be thinking about. What are the most common ways this deal can fall apart? Claude is really good at picking up things that are not quantitative. I'll give you an example. There was a pitch deck for a retail deal. It was a strip mall center in a great location. And I was looking at that deal and stress testing it. So that pitch deck got uploaded to Claude. And the prompt was highlight the 5 things that can go wrong with this deal. And what absolutely blew my mind was Claude at the time, the number one thing that Claude highlighted was this. This is a 2-story retail center. And the 2 second-story retail tenants are always at a risk of, receiving lower foot traffic. And that's the number one thing you want to be paying attention to. Not a single word in that deck had anything to say about this being a 2-story center. This wasn't highlighted as one of the risk factors. And it just kind of opened my eyes to the fact that all of these models, they already know a lot. There's a lot of stuff that they have been trained on. What you are asking has been, has been thought through. It's been looked at elsewhere, and you may not know certain things. You may not know what questions to ask. These models have potential to kind of open your eyes to a lot of different things. So that said, my favorite tool for this particular purpose is Notebook LM. I know Robbie shares my enthusiasm for this model. Robbie, take it away. What do you like about it?
I can tell a story as well about where we found the uses of Notebook LM to be almost unique in the way that it's able to synthesize data. I'll back up for one moment to Claude, because Claude is a linguist. It has great language tools, so much so that we use it for a lot of our marketing and to simplify ideas that we're looking to communicate. But that doesn't mean that it's a perfect mathematician. However, as an example, many limited partners meet us at conferences and they hand out decks, and you get emails after the conference of the different presentations that went on stage, or join us at this next event in La Jolla, California, or whatever the case is. At one time, we received an opportunity to go and be a general partner sponsoring an event. And I said, I think I've heard of this event. I want to do a little more due diligence. Plugged it into Claude and asked it, go and pull for me all of the names, of which there were probably 300 different names referenced in a 40-page PDF about an event. And I said, and identify for me, out of all those names, any ones that I should be concerned about having my name associated with as a member of Y Street Capital. And it said, yep, we have statistics. We have found references. Claude said this to me immediately. We have references in this document to people that have suspicious background that built out this event. They were a part of an investigation in 2019. They had this article written about them in 2022. And I said, I have heard enough. Thank you. That's good for me. We will not be attending. We will definitely not be sponsoring. That took me maybe 3 minutes, including thinking, am I really wanting to read this 40-page PDF, or should I just hand it over to Claude? That's the OCR capability, the optical character recognition that Claude has. So Claude is fantastic. ChatGPT is a good generalist, but you start to learn as you work with these tools more, as you grow your baby, that there are times when one is better suited to do the work on another than on a subject than another. Notebook LM, yes, let's get into it. Notebook LM is a Google tool, and it is free, just like everything else we've talked about so far. Yes, there are paid versions. Typically $20 a month is your first paid tier. Notebook LM, free tool from Google, and it is based on the functions of a notebook, a digital notebook. You upload files that you want, and it starts to store them in a silo where it's going to do the analysis, only working with the materials you've provided. Later, if we have time, we can screen share and show this, but Notebook LM is very simple. You upload pages on the left. I have an example in mind where we were presented with a business investment that was interesting enough that I said, I'll just do this through Notebook LM because that's not our primary business model. We don't invest in other businesses. Uploading the documentation to Notebook LM, On the left-hand side, it provides a brief summary, and it can take hundreds of pages and start to cross-reference them. Notebook LM also cites its sources in the documentation you provide it. It's got web access. It can do a little bit of that, but it's going to confine itself primarily to what you're giving it. So I plug this business investment in and I say, tell me about the concerns you see. And immediately it starts to identify some of what Leyla will tell us more about. Like, wow, it's this business average additional projects taken on is 1 or 2 per year. But in 5 years, it's talking about a 50 times increase in revenue, only doing 1 to 2 additional projects per year over a 5-year period. It's going to make 50 times its investment from doubling the amount of projects. That is not good financial math. That's not good financial projections at a basic level. Now, at least I, without doing any work, have the resources to go and ask the business, how do you think you're going to do that much more revenue from incremental increase in projects? Notebook LM pulled that out immediately of the files uploaded to it. Fantastic tool. Leyla, what would you like to add?
I would like to add this, and Robbie, you touched on all of this. Unlike ChatGPT, which will go and start, I think of ChatGPT as, Robbie, you mentioned it's a generalist. The problem is ChatGPT has access to all of the internet, and you have absolutely no idea. It will very confidently tell me the very wrong things. And with Notebook LM, I can confine and say, okay, here's the deck. You're only looking at this deck. Here's a link to the relevant, let's say, demographic data. And I want you to reference only those 2 sources. And what I shared here in this presentation, that was the second image that I uploaded to this Gamma presentation. But this is what your Notebook LM window looks like. And you can see you can add links, you can add documents. One important, very important consideration. With ChatGPT and Claude, you're going to hit token limits with one presentation deck. If you have a free account, which most of us do, or we'll have one paid account subscription, and we'll use all the other tools, free accounts with all the other ones, you will very quickly run into token limits. With Notebook LM, you can upload a lot more data, again, because it confines itself to only sourcing that data. And the number one thing you want to do is you want your baby, and I've trained my babies for over a year. I have babies that I've been kind of nurturing, and they're toddlers now, and those toddlers still don't know. I still have to kind of put them in line. My AI babies. With Notebook LM, you can say, pull all of the assumptions and cite the source, show me the page, and you can go confirm all of those assumptions because it's not foolproof. And then you can say, okay, let's use only those, and let's use the data that I'm going to give you or the data that I'm going to link to, and let's work through just those particular inputs. Great tool.
Yes. Notebook LM is one of the various LLMs out there that can accept video. And so we publish our original presentation on YouTube afterwards. Copy the link. It's already in Google. Google owns YouTube. Google owns Notebook LM. Take the Google link, take the YouTube link, drop that right in. And now you have the ability to not need to listen back through half an hour of a presentation to go, did they say 8% preferred return or 7% preferred return? The document says 7, the video says 8. What's with the discrepancy? These are the things that occur in the operation of a general partnership business that you need to know about as a limited partner. Why the change? What occurred? What's going on in the business landscape that I need to know about? And even if there's mistakes in pro formas, these are the ways that you can very efficiently analyze them so that you don't lose track of key details because you're getting into the weeds of, okay, second story. Okay, this is in a tertiary market, and the tertiary market has these main employers here. All of that consuming information has to be simplified. Frank asked a great question, which I'll pause and ask here. Do we run everything through large language models, or do we set up tools via API? Frank, the answer for us is that we do both, but for example, Notebook LM does not yet have an API key. So you're stuck there. I've often wanted to set up an agent that can simply drag the documents out of my email take them straight to Notebook LM and return the same type of basic questions before I even need to do the manual work of copying and pasting or sharing. However, for other examples, my Claude tool is plugged into all sorts of different other software suites via APIs so that each piece of software can link to the other. And that's how you lower some of the costs when you start to get very serious about doing this work. By linking via API and not using, for example, Clay.com's native LLM, I can lower my own cost to use these tools. So instead of $50 a month, I'm now spending $5 a month on that different tool. We can talk about that more later. Anything you'd add, Leyla?
Yeah, for my purposes, I do not do APIs at all. I simply use Notebook LM as a notebook, and I really like the fact that data is confined. What I do want to add here, and this is an important thing, Notebook LM does not save your chats, unlike ChatGPT. With ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, you can go in and see the history of what you've discussed. Notebook LM does not have that capability. It does have the option to save the notes as notes, and this is just something that you have to get used to. Important notes, I just save them as a note on the side of the window.
No matter which tool you're using, generally you can at least get a minimum viable product out of engaging with one of the LLMs, one of the tools we've described here. And one quick question I'll ask everything I plug in, even before really thinking through and organizing my thing, I'll say, what incongruencies do you see in these uploaded documents that I should be aware of? What things don't quite make sense, either in logical reasoning or in mathematical reasoning? So then in 3 seconds, it's plumbed all the documents and cross-referenced and gone, are there any incongruencies, any key outliers that are obvious right at the front? Leyla, what other prompts do you like to use?
So I use prompts. I think LLMs are excellent at very linear prompts, and this is what I like to use those models for. If you tell a model, if you are looking at a multifamily value add deal and say, hey, what are the assumptions? Let's pull the assumptions. Let's look at the assumptions. Do you think those assumptions are aggressive? How do those assumptions compare to what has been historically happening in that submarket? Once you kind of have discussed that, the next thing to do with LLMs, and they shine at this, is to take those assumptions and start stress testing them. Typically, it's best done one by one because I unfortunately, don't be a monkey at the typewriter. You can ask all sorts of things. The results might not be super accurate. And I'm looking at the time. I know we're running up. For the sake of being respectful of everybody's time, what I have done is I've created a 5-prompt giveaway. If you subscribe to our newsletter, accreditedinsight.com, you can get in your welcome email, you will get a welcome email with those 5 prompts that I use that to stress test deals. I kind of share the best practices on how I prompt my LLMs to give me the right answers. You have to be mindful about this is not a total replacement of due diligence. You still need to do your own due diligence. Think of LLMs, of these AI tools, as a very powerful calculator that can do things and suggest things to test for you. And Robbie mentioned it, and I'll reiterate, ask questions, ask LLMs to highlight certain things to discuss further. It may not have the answer, but it may flag certain things and say, you know what, I think this particular assumption is a little bit on the aggressive side. Take note of that and have a discussion with the GP. If you're looking at a deal and if you're serious about this is a great starting conversation. It's a conversation starter. Discuss it. The tools that you have at your disposal are incredible at making you better. Use them as a tutor that's making you a better investor, a better underwriter. But don't forget, it's just a tool. You still have to know what you're stress testing and what you're asking.
Layla's last prompt on the screen here says, recalculate internal rate of return assuming 0% rent growth for 2 years. That is the type of insight that you can gain immediately when using a tool like this. What you all are witnessing is the beginning of the overlay of efficiency into real estate investing, into private markets investing across the entire spectrum of opportunities. This is the beginning wave. We are only just beginning to see what will really occur over a 10 and a 20-year period to make the private markets just as efficient as the public markets. And this is your first step to get there, hopefully before the rest of the world, so you can take advantage of these opportunities while they are still there. We are at times. So I love reading Layla's newsletter, and I hope you will as well. And follow both of us on LinkedIn so you can see how we're also keeping up with the curve on learning these different tools. It's a great landscape to pay attention to, and it is the future of private markets investing. Any last comments, Layla?
No, thank you for tuning in. We really enjoy doing this. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can find me on accreditedinsight.com or LinkedIn. Feel free to throw your questions and I respond to my messages.
Great. Thank you all. See us at Y Street Capital and our podcast, which Layla was featured on Saturday, Real Estate Espresso podcast. See you all soon.
Thank you.